Hello and welcome to the Dojo, a search marketing news podcast by Exposure Ninja. My name is Dale Davies. I'm the head of marketing at Exposure Ninja, and I'm joined by Charlie Marchant, our CEO. How you doing, Charlie?
Doing great, thank you. How are you, Dale?
Pretty good. And do you know what? I'm a bit quite thirsty today. I feel like I've done nothing but drink this morning, and I'm very, very thirsty indeed. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad. I'm actually drinking green tea, even though it's blazing hot here in the UK. But I'm still drinking hot drinks. I just can't get away from it. There's nothing I can do to
Yeah,
stop it.
the same. I'm going to make an exception today. I'm almost through an entire bottle of coconut water this morning. This is getting really bananas. Okay, let's move on to the actual topic of the conversation today, which is going to be about the Broadcore update that's just dropped this July. Charlie, what is a Broadcore update exactly?
Yeah, so a Broadcore update is a significant kind of change that Google makes to its search algorithm to improve how it assesses content, how it ranks web pages, to make sure it's actually giving the most relevant content types to the searchers. They do them fairly frequently, usually once or twice a year. So the last one we saw was around November last year, before that March last year, roughly. This one, which is the Broadcore update of June, because it happened 3 days ago, so just right at the end of June. So they're calling it June, even though it's just basically July, has a 3-week rollout period, which means we're going to see a lot of volatility in rankings during that 3-week period. And that could mean things spiking up and down, business owners, marketers seeing a lot of change on their organic search rankings and potentially on their traffic as well during this period whilst it's rolling out.
My understanding is that Google normally does updates fairly frequently. What's different here? Is there anything particularly big or different about Broadcore update versus like the daily stuff that we expect happens?
Well, the Broadcore update's looking across sort of all websites, all industries, so a fairly significant one in terms of the scale. I had a bit of a look this morning at SEMrush's sensor. So SEMrush have got a great sensor. You just go to semrush.com/sensor if you want to see it. And what that tracks is the volatility that's going on over the past 30 days in the search engine results. Looking at mobile, because around 65% of web traffic is mobile, it tends to be the majority. The US is really, really having a lot of volatility since this rollout. Really high range of changes, position drops up and down across sectors, across industries. The UK on mobile is seeing also high volatility, but not at the same levels as the US. And all of our friends over in Europe are having a lovely time. It's very green, so very normal ranges of volatility. So at the moment, they're probably the least impacted. What this also does is give you an idea of which sectors are suffering most with those changes, which is, I think, helpful to know, because if you're in one of those sectors, you have a bit of an idea of, is this normal or not normal? So on that left-hand column, if you're viewing the video version of this, there's a whole load of sector categories. So arts and entertainment, for example, in the US, massively high volatility. Same with hobbies and leisure, home and garden, internet and telecom. Whereas if you're in sectors like health, education, real estate, this one so far isn't showing that same level of volatility in those kinds of sites. So the impact is going to vary fairly significantly depending on sector and industry.
I find it quite interesting that health is not super impacted here, because during the Broadcore updates, you sometimes will see these your money, your life industries impacted quite a lot. For the benefit of people who don't know what your money, your life is, Charlie, perhaps you can explain.
Yeah, your money, your life industries are the ones where people make financial decisions, personal financial decisions, or decisions that impact their health and well-being from the information that they find online. So we generally think of those particularly as being finance and healthcare, as well as legal, because those sectors really, really influence decisions that people can make in their life. But like you say, health surprisingly unimpacted by this so far, which is quite unusual. It's usually a sector that sees a lot of volatility. Finance a bit more so. They're quite high, 8.1 out of 10 on the index. So that's pretty high in finance, I think. That's for the US.
What I'm seeing And again, if you are listening along, I highly recommend you come over to youtube.com/exposure ninja to have a look at what I'm showing on screen, which is this sensor, this graph, this tracker of volatility in the search. What's standing out to me the most is this lower half area where it talks about the features. The search results just tend to be feature snippets, reviews, instant answers, visibility of videos in the search results, and so on. The percentage of AI overviews is at 10.97%, which is massive. But you see how it's really increasing over the last couple of days. Like, they are clearly trying to test and see how much more they can push AI overviews and eventually AI mode into these core your money, your life, or abbreviated YMY. These industries, these sectors where they're often really cautious about putting AI overviews in there because they don't want to make mistakes. They want to put hallucinations out there. It looks like they're slowly pushing up the percentage. In fact, earlier on when I was looking for desktop, it was way higher. And this is the bit that really shook me the most, was there are 15% coverage now, and they've just shot up in the last day or couple of days. I don't know what the percentage increase here is. It's massive. 9.19% is a huge overnight increase in visibility for AI overviews. And this is just the typical, well, just the starting first phase before we get AI mode, which is the inevitability, the inevitable feature that will overtake traditional search. Charlie, do you agree that AI? This is just the start of where we're heading to?
Yeah, I think so. And we've kind of suspected that Google were going to push AI overviews more and more as they're trying to get people used to AI appearing on their search results. Makes a lot of sense with AI mode, which we've spoken about in previous podcasts. There's plenty of videos about AI mode on our YouTube channel if you're not yet familiar with that, which was rolled out in the US and is now in testing in labs in India as well. It makes sense that they're going to be pushing AI overviews, particularly to the UK and to the US, to get people more familiar with AI in the search results. I'm also seeing increases in video carousels as well when I'm looking at desktop and mobile. So really interesting to see them pushing more video. Also kind of makes sense because most of the time they're pushing YouTube videos, and of course Google owns YouTube. So expecting to see more of that on the search results as well.
I'm just going to switch and share another screen. It says, just bear with me a second. I've got another graph which was shared by Barry Schwartz on LinkedIn, resharing some data from SimilarWeb, which is talking about the click-through rate of AI overviews as well. And I think it's important to share because as a broadcore update changes all of the rankings, from top to bottom, everybody goes up and down, sideways. The increase in AI overviews as a result of that broadcore update is important to understand because according to this data, which I'm just going to share now, and again, for any audio listeners, it's always worth popping over to watch us live or on youtube.com/exposure ninja. This graph shows how much organic traffic is going through to websites as a consequence of these AI overviews being more visible. So in this instance, thank you, Charlie, adding that on screen for me. That's the problem with having two screens and do the live stream at the same time. Yeah, you can see just how much visibility there is in this case, for the news industry, for news publishers, where what does it say here? Since the launch of Google AI Overviews a year ago, no click or zero click search has grown from 56% to 69%. You can see in the graph how the organic traffic, the traffic to these websites, has just continued to go down and down and down. So if a broadcore update is increasing the visibility and usage of AI overviews, that's going to mean an impact to traffic to your websites, not just in the news sector, but all sectors.
Yeah, it's huge. I've also seen a lot of informational websites coming out as the losers so far. I mean, we're only 3-4 days into this broadcore update, so we shouldn't make sweeping generalizations, but here I go anyway. I'm seeing quite a lot of informational content sites dropping rankings in this first couple of days so far, with exceptions. A couple of exceptions would be very well-known news sites. So, for example, the BBC at the moment are benefiting from this. But everything that's a bit more like Good Housekeeping, those kind of magazine type publishers, they're really not having a great time in this core update. So potentially no surprise, considering that's also the trend that we've seen from AI overviews and the zero-click searches that you were just showing there.
So we've got an increase in AI overviews, an increase in these different features that are going to change how we can expect traffic to come through to our website. But our website is also potentially going to drop during this period as well, because that's the nature of broadcore updates, that there are winners and that there are losers. I don't know if you're familiar with like some of the reasons that a website might see drops in the search results.
So there's quite a few reasons, as you know, just as well as I do, Dale. Google's Search Central, all they had to say about this was it's just a regular update designed to surface relevant, satisfying content for searchers from all types of sites, which is potentially the most generic statement they could have made about this. The kinds of reasons that we know that cause ranking loss during broadcore updates tend to be things like rubbish content, so thin, weak, not very valuable content, the kind of content that gets generated by AI without good editorial oversight, we also tend to see performs poorly. If you've got not very good EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, shown through your content, something that Google has been pushing hard on for years, and outdated info. More and more, I think Google's trying to get rid of that. They don't want their AI overviews, their AI mode pulling from incorrect old content pruning, or essentially merging old content and deleting irrelevant content is something that we're seeing more and more as a priority in SEO. So if you've got a site with a backlog of old, outdated content, that might be the kind of thing that sees you having some shaky ground when it comes to volatility here in the search engine results. Anything you'd add to that list, Dale?
Just having a terrible website. I think is a big thing too. Sorry to those of you who haven't been able to update your website in a couple of years, which that happens, especially in the bigger organizations where there's a lot more kind of hoops to jump through in order to get a website updated. The technical debt, as we call it, i.e., all the problems that come along with technical setups, they impact algorithm update. They will feature as part of the reason that a website will drop in the algorithm updates as well. So if you have a fairly slow website, or it's just not well optimized for how people use the internet today, then it could impact it as well. And that's what separates chatbots like ChatGPT and Perplexity from Google, is that those chatbots tend to focus more on just text, just give me words, I'll crawl your website, get the words, get out of there. That's it. Google, on the other hand, factors in everything: website loading time, how long it takes for something on screen to appear and be clickable. Like, I could go into the technical side of it, but I'll save you from it, because unless you're so inclined, it can get fairly boring. But so super important is the technical side of SEO, or we call it technical SEO, and increasingly technical AI search understanding. You have to understand, how well your website is set up for being crawled by these LLMs, or for LLMs. So that can be a big feature as well. One thing I always say to people who are doing like link building or guest posting is, when looking at those websites, make sure that they would pass those kinds of tests. Like, do they look like they're well optimized for search, well optimized for users, well optimized in general? Because there's a knock-on effect as well. You may have earned 100 backlinks in the last quarter. If 50 of those websites then get pulled down the rankings because their UX, their user experience, is poor, their page loading times are poor, there's going to be a knock-on effect to you as well. So there's a lot more to this, all these different things that you've mentioned there, and I mentioned about the technical side of things, that go beyond just your website that impact your rankings. It's also this distribution of content and links that teach Google and increasingly LLMs about your business.
Yeah, and quality over quantity every time. when it comes to link building and backlinks, and even brand mentions if someone's running a brand mention type strategy as well. Quality over quantity of links is much, much more important. So Dale, let's assume people are thinking, okay, well, how's this affecting my business, my website? What should they be doing? What's best to do in this next 3-week period as this is rolling out?
You know, I've answered this question many times over the years, and I think it is understandably quite easy and understandable to panic in the first period. Like in the first week, I've had many conversations in the past, sometimes with clients where they're saying, you know, like, what is going on? And I get it, because traffic often means revenue. And I'd also be feeling the same if I saw my rankings go down. But it's not uncommon. In fact, it's very common to see a website fly back up to where it was beforehand if it goes down in the first kind of couple of days at the end of the 2-week period. In fact, they normally say give it 2 weeks and the algorithm update will fully roll out. In that third week is generally when things start to be restored. They realize that they made a mess of things, and then they're going to kind of reverse a few things, tweak a few knobs. What's changed, I suppose, more recently is that they have even the least amount of understanding of how the system works nowadays, because so much of it is AI dependent. The reason they're saying, like, okay, you have to just wait and see for things to how it goes, is because I think they don't entirely understand how things are going to go themselves. So they have to wait and see first, and then they go, oh god, yeah, okay, maybe we shouldn't have done that. All right, how do we tell the system to to reverse what it's done? So my first kind of piece of advice would be to not panic, and then perhaps start to look at your traffic. Okay, the traffic you are getting, if it's gone up or down, which pages are they going to? Which pages are not getting as much traffic as they were before? Is there anything about those pages that if you step back and be fair about things, you would say, yeah, maybe it didn't really deserve to rank as well as it did before, or do you know what, I haven't updated this in about 2 years. It could do with a bit of a refresh. So looking at traffic and the landing pages that search traffic goes to is a great starting point.
Yeah, I feel like every marketer and business owner's worst nightmare is hearing the phrase, don't panic, don't make any drastic changes, because our immediate gut reaction, myself included, is to actually try and make changes and figure out what's going wrong. My best advice, I think, is if you are like me and you are inclined to want to suddenly make changes when you see drops happen, is to actually just make notes on the pages that you are concerned about from what you're seeing with your rankings or your traffic, about what you think you could change when you're looking at the page. Then still give it a week during this rollout. And if that page is still looking like it's dropped towards the end of the 3-week period, then start making changes. And then you've got your whole section of notes that you've already done. And if you see something recover, if you see that it's back to where it was before or performing better, you'll be glad that you didn't rush in, make loads of changes, because then it will be really hard for you to track, what was that because I made changes? Was that just going to be the case anyway? Did my changes actually cause a worse situation when actually it's unclear what's going on? Even though the waiting game is perhaps the most horrible period of purgatory that every marketer and SEO and content creator of any type hates. But don't panic is generally the best advice, I have to say.
Yeah. Now I've been in SEO for like 10 years at this point. It gets easier, but you need a decade of going through them, going through this a couple of times, and eventually you will start to feel a little bit easier about it. But yeah, I can fully understand why people may panic, especially when they're dependent upon, let's say, hundreds of thousands of hits per month.
Absolutely.
Versus a smaller business where they may be only getting 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 visits instead.
Yeah.
Another great place to check is Search Console, of course. So Google offers this, it used to be called Webmaster Tools, this platform where you can go and track the visibility of your website and how many impressions and clicks it's getting, what average position it has too. Also tells you a whole bunch of other stuff about how well optimized some of your pages are for crawling, and it will just tell you that some pages have been crawled but won't be indexed, and you have to go ahead and figure that out. You'll see in there your impression drops, your average position changes. changes in click through to various pages. You can also filter by a page as well. So you can see, okay, this page on this topic has done really, really well off the back of this update. This other one hasn't. What differences are there between these two fairly similar pages? Is it the intent of the searcher? Is it the person searching for a kind of information? This page is more thorough, this other page is not. Lots of things in there. So that's another great place, because sometimes there may even be some really clear red flag signals in there that, oh, do you know what? That thing that we could have gotten around to, maybe we should have gotten around to it earlier. Like it's saying the loading time of this page is above the average as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love Search Console. I actually think it's one of the most underrated tools in a marketer and business owner's tool stack, because it's quite simple compared to Google Analytics. I find it is much clearer and easier to get the info that you actually want to get without putting on 100 filters to actually get there. The other one that we could look at, if you are tracking your rankings, if you're tracking your keyword rankings somewhere, and that there's various tools that do this. So it might be SEMrush, SE Ranking, Moz. You can also keep an eye on that and actually filter by the date. So you can see like the week before, for example, the rollout of this, and then how that's actually looking now. That's a great way to group together and see if there's any trends for certain kinds of keywords. One of the common things that tends to happen in a broadcore update is a selection of keywords that you have might go down, and they're actually topically very similar, usually because actually Google have decided perhaps the intent of that searcher isn't to get the kind of result that your content is giving. That I think is a really good place to look, and a great way to group trends before starting to make changes on site.
Absolutely. It's also a good way to determine whether Google, in its infinite noodly wisdom, has decided, okay, you are not allowed to rank for this particular subject matter. So, yeah, there was the case earlier in the year where everyone was pointing to HubSpot's blog and going, oh my God, they lost loads of rankings and so on. And, you know, looking through it in more detail, it's a combination of they've removed pages as well as Google has kind of removed them from the rankings. Google has determined you shouldn't be appearing for this subject matter whatsoever. We understand your business is about this associated subject you should have nothing to do with, therefore we're not going to rank you. So a broadcore update could be part of that. It could be saying this whole folder full of blogs or landing pages, whatever they are, service pages, product pages, category pages on ecom, sorry, we don't think that you really qualify as a strong business or brand for that, and therefore we're going to not rank you for it. So it could be potentially that you need to look through the folders, which you can also do through the rank trackers and Search Console. Change your query to just /blog or /category /trainers or whatever it is, and see, okay, category by category, folder by folder, who are the winners and losers? Is it something more to do with that, and we should, one, educate Google better that actually we do know the subject matter really well and this is something we offer through services or products? Or do you make the decision to say, do you know what, it was good to have the traffic whilst we had it, instead say goodbye to that. Let's narrow down our focus and just be known for this one particular thing.
Yeah. And that kind of topical relevance that you're talking about there is also a massive benefit for AI search as well. Actually, if you're publishing on content topics that are tangentially related to what you do, but not that closely overlapping with the product or service that you sell, it is worth thinking about whether you want to prune back some of that content and whether you are the most relevant person to be publishing on it as well.
Yeah, 1,000%. I guess one of the last areas to check are your competitors to see how much of your sector has been impacted as well. So is it related just to you, or are all of the businesses in your sector or subsector or whatever it is, your little niche, are they also seeing downtrends in their rankings? Is it that Google is deciding to offer a diverse selection of results versus what may have been there before? It may be the 2 or 3 of the biggest businesses with the largest market share or share of search have overly dominated for too long, and Google has decided we're going to break it up. We're going to have, for this bunch of queries, we're going to have 5, 10, 20 different websites appearing in different orders. Or is it something else? So another great place to look is like, how is my sector performing as well?
Absolutely. And I guess if you are thinking, oh my goodness, I have no idea what's going on and I need a hand, you can also always reach out to one of our team. You can do that by heading to the contact page on the site, or if you've not previously requested a free review, if you qualify, there's some qualifying criteria that you will have to fill out on site at exposureninja.com/review. We are always happy to take a look and have a gander at what's going on with your rankings during this kind of broadcore update as well, and give a bit of advice about next steps.
Another great place to go is over to YouTube, and you can search for Exposure Ninja Ranking Drop, and there's a great video and perhaps a webinar too with myself and Andy Tuxford, our head of SEO, which talks about the kind of tactical work you need to do in order to check whether you have been impacted by a broadcore update, if there is something else, whether somebody's made a mistake in a website update or something like that. Let's say a development team has just accidentally no index your website. It could just be, bad timing. It happened around the same period. So definitely go and search for Exposure Ninja Ranking Drop on YouTube and Google, and I'm sure it will come up top there as well. Final thoughts before we close for today, Charlie?
Final thoughts. Keep an eye on what's going on. Don't be too hasty with making changes. Keep a good set of notes about the kinds of changes that you do want to make. And then when we reach this end of the 3-week period, about 2.5 weeks from now, that's the time.
Spot on. Summarized perfectly. Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this live recording. If you'd like to join us every Friday, you can go to youtube.com/Exposure Ninja/live. You should be able to see our upcoming podcast recording. And if you want to hear any of our previous recordings, you go to exposureninja.com/podcast. You'll catch 400. Do you know what? It's 350 episodes of the Tim hosted digital marketing podcast. And there are now 50 or 60 episodes of the dojo. It's been going for like a year now, which there was probably a celebratory period. There was probably like a 1-year anniversary that I've somehow missed. But there are lots of podcasts out there for you to go and catch yourself up with all the things that are going on with SEO and AI search optimization, which is probably a bigger priority than any kind of ranking focus you may have right now. So if you haven't caught our video, our podcast episode about what is AI search, which we recorded last week, again, go to exposureninja.com/podcast and make sure you catch up with that, because it's of key importance. And that's it. I'm done for this week.
Amazing. Well, we wish you all the best with your broadcore updates, and may you long have excellent rankings to everyone who's listening.
Indeed. Take care, everyone. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.